58. So, my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord, for you know that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless. That's just a few words, but there's an awful lot of message in those few words that Paul uses. Paul says, so my dear brothers and sisters, all Christians then, all Christians in between till now, and every Christian here today. Paul said, my dear brothers and sisters. He has a message for us. God has a message for us. We've often said we are all a family here in this church. We're all brothers and sisters, and I think that's what that song says, isn't it? We call one another brothers and sisters around here. Sometimes we hear that. I used it the other day on the internet to Brother Terry Hogan. And it kind of, when I wrote it, put it over the air, I thought, that sounds kind of strange. But that's what we are. If we're Christians, we're brothers and sisters in the Lord. And so Paul here is talking to brothers and sisters. And what does he say? In a way, he says, are you a Christian? I thought, well, that's good. You know, all Christians ought to stand up and be recognized. And sometimes you'll hear a song sung that says, onward Christian soldiers, stand up for Jesus. And everybody stands. And I've heard people sing that song and say, you know, we can't say steady in our seats when it says stand up for Jesus. We have to stand up. And so everybody stands up. Paul said, be strong and immovable to his brothers and sisters. Be strong and immovable. That's two powerful words, isn't it? That also mean a great deal. I'd like to emphasize just a little bit. You remember a few years ago, and I'm not sure whether it was, I think somewhere around 1992, the shooting at Columbine High School in Colorado. The shooter went through the hallways and the classrooms asking different ones to stand up if they were a Christian. And then he'd shoot them. And I remember after the shooting that Rachel went around the countryside telling everybody she was a Christian and she stood up. You know, we never know when somebody's going to walk up to us and say, are you a Christian? Stand up. It happened again not too long ago up north. And I remember one of the survivors said that this person was going around asking them if they were a Christian to stand up, and then shot them. Would you stand up if you faced a situation like that? This is what our world is coming to. And I'm afraid that over the past several years, we as Christians have failed to take a stand, and this is why our world is getting into the shape it's in. We're holding back of letting people know I'm a Christian. I go to church. I belong to such and such a church. I believe in the power of God to accomplish greater things. And I know that without God living in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. It doesn't mean that we're free from pain and strife. It doesn't mean that we'll have all wine and roses. It doesn't mean that life's going to be a bed of great things. It doesn't mean that all of our bills are going to be paid and we won't struggle tomorrow wondering where the next meal is coming from, or if we'll have a roof over our heads. I've begun to wonder about this winter. Am I going to have enough heat? Every so often my wife will say, well, you know, we have to start thinking about the winter's heat. We've had the furnace on now a couple of times, and I just checked the fuel tank the other day, and we're down to about 20%. If we have too much cold weather, that'll be gone before you know it. And I haven't checked the prices or the availability yet. And but I've checked my bank account to see where I'm going to get the money to buy the next tank of gas. Wood, you know, we burn wood, but I've got to do some repair work on my stove. Guess what happened? The refrigerator went out. Now I've got to think about buying a refrigerator. So yeah, we think about these things. And we begin to worry about how far the next paycheck is going to go. I don't know whether you all saw it, but the song that we heard a while ago, If I Can Help Somebody, then my living will not be in vain. We don't need to worry about all the bills and the food and all that kind of stuff. God took care of the sparrow. He'll take care of us. And that's what's important. But there was a fellow on a football team, a big young fellow in high school, you know, and his friend was being picked on. Because, you know, a lot of the news now, it's about bullying, kids bullying at school and kids bullying over the internet. And it's caused a lot of problems. And so this kid's friend was being bullied. Dr. Phil said, you know, he saw and he done something that was needed immediately to stop that bullying from going on. He knocked that kid down from beating on his friend. You know, and they're worried about what the school is going to do. And I thought Dr. Phil was right. This kid saw his friend being bullied and picked on, being beat up. And so he stepped in. And he done something that needed to be done immediately to stop the situation. The kid was blind. He couldn't defend himself. He needed a friend that stepped up. A little child that gets thrown out into the yard, beaten by a boyfriend. A baby that's left out in the cold, wrapped up. They can't help themselves. They need someone to step up and help them. I hate when I hear or I see little kids that are being mistreated. But this is the way our world is going. These are the things we face. So it's important for us to realize that Christ makes a difference. Would we stand up and help a blind boy that's being bullied and beat on? Even though the kid may be bigger than what we are. I was thinking, even today churches and preachers are not safe. Cemeteries are being destroyed. Dead people's headstones are no longer secure. I don't know how many times in cemeteries where they have run roughshod over it and knocked over the stones. Some that were very valuable stones, I'm sure. Those headstones that belonged to the graves, they couldn't do anything about it. Why does someone be so unconcerned and hateful to do something like that? Churches that have been defaced and painted or even burned to the ground. Preachers that have been shot in a worship service. Did you know that a lot of our churches now are allowing members to carry guns in church? How many of you have a gun here this morning? We sometimes say, well, we don't need that. That won't happen here. This preacher probably thought the same thing when a man walked in. If it hadn't been for a couple of men sitting in the service, that person may not have been here. But they shot the preacher right in the worship service. And a couple of members subdued the man